All right, we're back. We're going to continue now.
Where was
You were where? Are you in it?
I? But that lampshade looks better than I do. So.
Is that? Are you in it now?
I'm in it now.
Okay. You were telling about in the barn.
Yeah, when they got down there,
they
come in with shovels and things, and there we were, red-faced, sick as a dog, kids, and they felt so sorry for us. They didn't even do anything to us, but it was Grandpa's fault for making the pipes, so we just blamed him. But now he never thought about us going down there smoking.
Who all was
corn still? Well, it was Charles and Louise and Bill. That's Charles and me and Bill. That was three. It always in everything. And then there was Louise and some of Aunt Norris, baby Benny and Callaway, and it's I don't know if there's any Aunt Mary's there or not, but anyway, there's 4 or 5 of us, maybe 6, sitting around there with them corncob pipes. I think they took them away from us after that. I'm not sure. But anyway, they didn't want us to burn down the house. Oh. And let me see what else I can tell you. I'm just telling you tales now of what happened. I know one I can tell you. Before any part of West Virginia was settled, they send out scouts. And there was 2 partners. They were friends. And their names were Gilbert and Lusk. And I don't know their first names, Grandpa did, but I'm lucky to remember what their last names were. But anyway, they were coming up a mountain towards Gilbert. They were coming up the mountain. So they may have been over into where Gilbert is now. And Lusk was following Gilbert. He was in the lead. And they knew there were Native Americans, Indians in there because that's what they were scouting for. And so Gilbert was in the lead and he was kind of trotting up the trail and he happened to just catch something caught his eye and he looked and there was a stone on a rawhide string hanging down from a tree and it was going round and around and around. And he hollered for Lusk to run because he knew it was Indians there trapping them. So they got him, but Lusk got away. And they named Gilbert after him. That's where it's got its name. So I don't know how long they kept him or tortured him or anything like that. Grandpa did, but I can't remember all that. And shoot, I've lived a lifetime since Grandpa told us all those tales. But anyway, that was one thing I thought was really interesting. And then let me see what else. Should I tell them about the fair or the
carnival?
Had a carnival.
Just be careful.
Huh?
Yeah.
Up above Yeager, close to where the dam was. And I can't think of that dam's name, but you all do. It's between Rhodafield and Yeager. And they had, what you call it?
Maybe a spider ride.
It was a spider ride or something that they had like buckets, big bucket things, and 1 or 2 people got in them and it'd go up and down and around and up and down and around. And this black friend was with Gerald and them. And so he got on, he wanted to ride. Well, they were all riding and having a good time. And all at once they heard a big noise and the basket or whatever you want to call it that he was in flew out over the river, and as luck would have it, it fell into the big pond. The river would come down and go against the bank, and it always wash out of place, and then the other side of it would be rocks. So he was lucky he fell down in that pond like place. And they, oh my gosh, they shut it down and they were running and everything. And he said, I'm all right. And they got over there where he was. They were going to go get him. And he was pulling that bucket out of that hole of water. So that was a miracle. And they just couldn't believe it when they saw him. But if he'd hit those rocks, it wouldn't have been nothing left of him much. Now, on up one more. Up at the dam, I don't know whose idea it was, but Grandpa and Uncle Will and Uncle Arthur and Dad all took a notion they were going to camp out and fish, and they wanted us to go with them. So they put up 2 or 3 tents. The kids all stayed in one. The women stayed in one. And the men, they just fished all night. So they were out fishing, and it started raining. No, this is before it rained. We went exploring. We always explored. And Charles was our leader. But we had strict orders not to go around that dam. So where did we head? Right toward the dam, naturally. So it was like when you got up to it, it was like they'd made steps where they concreted it, and they'd stepped it back like that, so you could just walk up like steps. So we walked up and got up to where we could look over, and the water was always, it was running over some. It was up to the top. And we got scared till we almost peed our pants. A cottonmouth snake had its mouth open, headed right for us, and it looked like cotton. That was the scariest thing I believe I've ever seen. And we turned, and it's 1,000 wonders, and the grace of God kept us from falling and rolling down those steps. And that scared us to death, nearly. And then, so it started raining. So we was called in the tent, and Grandpa, he felt sorry for us. So he came and stayed in the tent with us that night and scared us out of our wits with his tales. And I can't remember what he told us, but he told one about walking up that railroad track and coming across a red snake eating a black one. And nobody had ever seen a red snake. But he swore it was the truth, and we believed him because he didn't lie. And he had enough to tell it was the truth. And it was eating that black snake. So anyhow, that's our tale from there. So
what about those tall trees and the horses?
Oh yeah, the horses that Coley and them used in their timber business, they were those big Belgians, and their feet were huge, and they would let them out on the weekend, and they run down the long pole. And then they'd have to go and find them, before work. On Sunday, they'd have to go back and get them and back up. So we got together, Louise and Charles and Bill and maybe Leroy and Gerald. I'm not sure, but there's 4 or 5 of us always, at least 4. And we were going just out messing around. And we got down to the curve where the Morning Star Church is now, and that curve. And we heard those horses coming down. Well, they made, just running down the road. They come down and got in the field and started that bottom there and started eating. Well, we act like they were coming right at us. We tore up those cliffs and got up on that bank, and that didn't satisfy us. Each one of us picked a tree, and we climbed up to where we were swaying back and forth like that in the tree. And the horses, they just nibbled and went on down the long pole. Well, Grandpa and Jay had been cutting timbers for the mines, and he said, Grandpa told Mom and them, said, we heard something in the woods way back up, near the Panther Fork. And then we couldn't figure out what it was. And he said, we got down there, and there they was. He was talking. In the top of those trees, swaying back and forth like it was nothing. And they told us that he was afraid of the horses. And we didn't see a horse anywhere. It's a wonder the trees hadn't broke off with us. It scared him. Oh my gosh, it scared him. But again, we didn't get a whipping. He just talked to us, and we never tried that trick again. But one, I'll tell you this on me. 2, I've got 2 more things to tell you, and then we'll shut up. Somebody, I don't know if it was Gerald or who, but we were at Grandpa's and Granny's, and they got sick. And I had to go to somewhere I had to go get something from around through there. Seemed like it was somebody had a car and they were going to take. You didn't have telephones or anything, so I had to go and tell them, get them to go take Gerald to the hospital, to the doctor. I think it was. But anyway, so I got around that curve and started up toward Panther Fork, and there was a horse across the on the old road over there across the creek, and it just stopped and looked at me, stopped its eating and looked at me, and I got scared and crawled under a cliff. And I was more danger of getting bit by a snake under that cliff than I was that horse. It didn't pay no attention to me. It just walked on off. But I was like, you have to remember, I was only like 7 or 8 or something like that. So when Grandpa came in to go to eat dinner, eat lunch, he found me under that big cliff. Liz, what are you doing under there? And I told him about that horse, and he said, what horse? So again, there was the horse, and it wasn't there. So then, this is what I'm going to tell you last. This was the last one, I promise you.
No, don't promise.
Well, today, Rona had me talking to lose my voice here about stuff nobody cares about.
That's not true.
I know you all want to hear it, what stupid kids we were. But anyway, Aunt Gladys had been over to our house, and it was getting kind of late, and she and Leroy and Louise, I believe that's all. I don't know if Jay was with them or not. I don't think he was. They were going to walk back home, of course. They walked everywhere, we did. And it was getting late. Shade was coming over. So Gerald and Marlon and Charles and I decided we'd walk them over to the home. You know, just up and over the hill and up the road. They'd be home and we'd come back. Well, we got down to the Panther Fork, and just after we crossed the bridge, we heard a bunch of horses coming down the road behind us where we'd been. And so we thought, you know, there was those, we just never thought what it was, but we could hear the horses. And so Aunt Gladys rushed us over into the woods. We just climbed up in the woods and hunkered down or something. And the horses, we could hear them coming. And they kept coming and coming and coming. And all at once, that we heard them cross that bridge. And they sounded like a whole herd of them. And we couldn't see a thing. And all at once, that sound of them running raised up in the air and went out of hearing down Longpole. And I heard that, and I would swear on a stack of Bibles that that's the truth. And that like scared the pee out of us, because it were ghost horses. Ghost horses. And nobody had ever heard them or heard them since. And so we sort of took Aunt Gladys down to the curve and let her go on by herself. We went back home. But we went back up that mountain and over and down home faster than we went up it, I'll tell you. But it was just unbelievable to hear them coming down. We watched for them to come into sight, and then to hit that bridge and come across it, and then just raise up and go over us, you know, kind of down the road. And we were standing there looking up in the air, see if we could see something, and there was nothing, just the sound, and it went out of hearing down Longpole. So I don't know. Y'all think I'm crazy, and I may be, but I know that, because you don't forget something like that. And I'm going to quit, because I got to think of it. Huh?
Nothing.
Oh, and right down below there, between there and the curve, there was up on top of the hill across the creek and up on that side, over that old road and up on it. It was something knocked all time, day and night. Same sound, same tempo, never changed. Anytime you went by there, day or night, that knocking was up in that holler. And it, you know, you were scared at first, but then you got used to it. So we never went in that mountainside. That's one mountainside that we stayed away from. But I don't know when it stopped or if it ever did, but it was just as sure as you got close to it, you could hear it. And some of the men said it was somebody had a still up there, but they couldn't stand to make that noise all the time, just the same, tempo and same sound. So never did find out what that was either. So anyhow, can I quit now?
What about handing them at that funeral, that man's jacket?
Oh, Rona's thinking of things. I hope you all enjoying this because Rona's thinking of things.
They are.
I think it was Clarence and Uncle Will's mother, or it might have been Barb's mother. I'm not sure, but they lived up Litwar Holler there, down at Litwar, the one you turned up. It had that name I didn't like. I think they call it Splendor Valley now or something. But anyway, they lived up there, kind of maybe a mile or so up that holler. And of course, they had the body there. And of course, everybody was there. Mom, her sisters, Aunt Nori, and Aunt Hazel, for sure. And they were sitting together in a room. And it was springtime. So they were sitting there talking and enjoying. Of course, they're seeing people and everything. And all at once, this poor old man came in, all dressed up, and had on a good jacket, like a suit jacket or something. And he got right in front of Mom and stopped, and he was talking to somebody. And she looked, and he had a piece of Christmas candy stuck to his pocket on the outside, and it was up like in April. Well, that's all it took. Mom cracked up behind her handkerchief, and Aunt Nori and Aunt Hazel, they did too, and everybody around them was laughing behind their handkerchief, and people thought they were crying. And that was another laugh. They were a mess. But that poor feller, he was oblivious to what he was carrying around on the outside of his pocket. And if it hadn't been Christmas candy, it might not have been as bad. But here it was April, and he was carrying Christmas candy around outside. Bless his heart.
Who was it that had that old car that somebody jumped up on?
Oh, that was Uncle Arthur.
Okay,
and that was the same place where we heard the horses. That same place. Uncle Arthur and Aunt Hazel lived out of the cemetery, and Uncle Arthur had a car, and I don't know, it was one of the older ones, because that's what they were new then. But anyway, he would go out, and he drank a lot, but he's the kindest, sweetest person I ever saw in my life. But he liked his booze, and so he was coming home one night, way in the middle of the night, down through there. And he crossed the bridge, going down. Then he had to go on down the curb, and that's where he lived, over in that bottom. And all at once, this man, a big hat, dressed in black, jumped on the running board, and he was driving now. He was going along, and then he saw nothing. And that man jumped on the running board and rode down through there with him, looking at him, and then disappeared before he got to the curve. Well, that kind of shook him up, even if he was about half shot, and never did find out what that was either. So that place was always then spooky. From Panther Fork down to Longpole Creek, it was kind of spooky. It really was. Never did figure out a lot of things that went on down through there. Can I quit now?
If you want to.
I'm going to quit now. Because I can. And I'll get back to you. I got to think of some more stuff. I know you all want me to tell a lot of spirit or ghost tales and stuff like that. But to tell you the truth, Grandpa just told so many, unless the Lord blesses me to remember them. I'm not sure that I can tell many of them. But I can tell stuff that happened, to me and in my time. But Grandpa, he was the storyteller, and I just kicked myself because I didn't write a lot of them down. It was, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it, and see you down the road.
Okay, well, I enjoyed it, and I hope y'all did too. And Happy Mother's Day.
Oh
And,
yeah, I forgot to say.
and she said Happy Mother's Day too. She forgot. But I hope y'all have a good one, and we'll talk to you later.
Hope I didn't scare you by being on there.
We'll talk to you later. Bye bye.